Welcome to this special episode of the Collaborative Canvas. Today, we're spotlighting a conversation that stemmed from one of the most timely and talked about session at the Asia Research Media Breakfast Seminar. A deep dive into how AI is set to transform the research and insights industry overall. Joining me is Piers Lee, Managing Director at BDRC Asia and a key voice behind the study presented at the seminar. This research goes beyond trends to explore the true opportunities, limitations, and implications of the AI for researchers, agencies, and clients alike. From redefining the role of human insights to the strategic repositioning of agencies in an AI powered world, this episode explores the bigger picture of what next of our industry. So stay tuned as we just begin with introducing Piers Lee. Welcome, Piers.
Hello there. Hi.
Piers, the audience wanted to know, about this study, about research media, about you. So how about we start with your introduction?
Okay, well, I'm Piers Lee. I'm the Managing Director of BDRC Asia in Singapore. We're part of the BVA BDRC group headquartered in the UK and France. I've had a pretty long career starting in the UK, but I moved to Asia in 2000 and I've held senior management roles at companies like Cinevate, Cadence, and founded BDRC in 2011. And I've also been on the editorial team of Asia Research Media, which is the trade publication for the market research industry in Asia. And that's been around since 2005. So it's actually celebrating its 20th year this year.
Thank you so much, Piers. That's good to know. Let's set the table first. Understanding, what ignited the thought of doing this study, and then what was the core objective behind conducting such a research with identifying AI as an impact?
Yes, I mean it's kind of interesting how the industry has evolved, and also what Asia Research Media has been covering over the last 20 years. So we saw how the panel business had become so important, and with online panel companies becoming sponsors and supporters of Asia Research Media, from about 10, 15 years ago, and more recently, the industry is evolving such that AI are now becoming important stakeholders in the industry. So, there's been a lot discussed about AI over the last 2, 3 years, and that's accelerating. So when you're going to industry events, a lot of the presentations and papers are about AI and its applications. But I think so much was being talked about in terms of applications and benefits, but no one really kind of stood back to look at what we described as the bigger picture, and that was the theme of breakfast seminar last week, was what's really going to be the overall impact of AI on the market research industry. How is it going to change the supply side of the business? And that required us not just looking at the benefits of AI, but the drawbacks and limitations of AI. So therefore, we would get a better understanding of the role of the human researcher going forward. Now, in tandem with that, we also looked at AI applications in other industries to give us a kind of, I guess, a sense of how advanced AI is in the research industry as compared to other industries. So we did some research, for example, in areas where AI is also being adopted, human resources, a lot of applications there. So I conducted some interviews with HR directors, and even in the production and manufacturing industries, AI has its applications. But it was pretty evident from our own research that the consumer insight industry is adopting AI much faster than most other industries. So I think there was something that I referenced as well in the seminar, that a study was conducted in the US in 2024 that found that only 5% of businesses are using AI in their products and services, although there's a lot more informal use of AI within corporations. About a third of individuals are saying that they're using AI in their jobs. Now, within our survey, so we conducted a survey end of last year, we found that the majority of research companies are already using AI, but we also found that it's still quite informal use. So a lot of individual researchers are using AI as they wish, without much oversight. So that's something that we highlighted as a potential concern. So that was the basis of doing the study last year, for which we had reported on. So, we can go into various areas in that research as we proceed with this interview. So, yeah.
And you
What else
you
what else
mentioned
would
that
you like to
the
know?
yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the AI usage has been very informal. Considering AI is a bigger word in terms of, when we talk about AI by and large, whether it is you're just knowing about the data, the insights, or we see, the chat GPTs of the world. Research aspect within AI has its own values. And when you say informal, I'm believing that people probably sticking themselves to just designing the questionnaire, or is it more about getting a deeper insight? So what are those key insights that you actually looked into and you found through the surveys, and how it
Okay.
is relevant for every stakeholders from the research side of the business?
Okay, well, what we found is currently the majority of researchers are using AI in desk research, such as scanning of findings across different sources, automated transcription of focus groups and interviews, brainstorming using AI to generate ideas, and automated insights, such as highlighting important findings from a transcript. So more than 50% of researchers are currently using those applications. The secondary applications, which sort of between 20 to 50% included research design, so using AI to assist in questionnaire design or guide generation, AI probing tools and surveys, sentiment analysis, and AI quality checks and surveys. Then tertiary applications, which was less than 20% current usage, included predictive modeling, development of stimulus, for greater image prompts, chatbot moderators, analytical applications using historic data to forecast, and competitive intelligence. What we also asked is what people expect to use in the future, and the four biggest growth areas where currently usage is less than 50% include the AI quality checks on surveys, sentiment analysis, analytical applications, including using historical data to forecast, and competitive intelligence. So there's room to grow AI applications. And also there's a very wide range of products being used in the market. So we record from just over, I think, 108 surveys. We conducted 44 different AI branded applications that are being used currently. But also the agencies are developing their own in-house proprietary AI applications. So, they're taking it quite seriously, given that they're willing to invest in developing their own AI applications.
Yeah, I was reading a few nuggets on ChatGPT, which as a task scheduler I have posted into. Ipsos is doing it. Nielsen is also working on it. And I met a few folks during my conference last month in Singapore. So a lot of people are using synthetic data as another opportunity. Do you think other than what you actually mentioned, there are opportunities as well? And then I'm sure there are certain limitations as well, where AI is demonstrating certain most transformative potential into the market research. What limitations or concerns do you think should be mindful in the adoption services increases?
Oh, well, there are a lot. Again, I mean, this is based on our survey. We did ask about what do you think are the main drawbacks, but I don't know. I don't know whether you want to talk about the advantages first before we talk about the disadvantages, because
Sure.
the we don't want to be too downbeat about AI. We need to be
Yeah.
aware of its limitations. But I don't know whether you want to talk about the perceived upsides first.
Yes, let's do that.
Based on our survey, primary benefits, certainly by a leading benefit by a considerable margin, is just helping the researcher be more efficient and just get things done faster, which includes faster ideation, analysis, and reporting. So 83% of researchers said that was one of the benefits from we had a list of 12 benefits. We asked them to select their top five. 83% put that in their top five. There will be, second one was reduced costs to doing research. I mean, not just greater efficiency, but you mentioned synthetic data. About half of the companies we surveyed have started using synthetic data, although just starting out. Now, our survey wasn't limited to just Asia, but we did get some responses from Western markets. And notably, the use of synthetic data is much higher in Western markets than in Asian markets. I think it's like 70% versus 30%, respectively. And that could be either because of availability, far more data being available in Western markets. But there's also the issue about acceptance of synthetic data within client organizations. So, that there is still an acceptance issue to overcome. Other benefits, including obtaining more value from existing research. So just being able to sweat existing data better. Improving the quality of research via creative inputs to the research using AI, better quality control of the survey, as well as making the surveys more engaging and interesting. And then the other areas include reducing human researcher bias so that the AI itself would reduce some of the inherent biases that creep into research through human researchers. That's not to say that that there's bias issues with AI as well, which we can come on to. And then generally enhancing profiling, predictive analysis, and even extending the services of the research vendor, for example, in creative development of campaigns. So they could almost become, creative agencies being an extension of their research services. And also analysis of niche audiences that are hard to reach, also, as well as synthetic data, using synthetic data for that purpose of synthetic boosts. So those were the range of benefits that the stakeholders talked about.
Yeah.
And but there are probably as many perceived limitations and drawbacks as well.
Yeah, I mean, considering that 70% of the data lies in the Western markets, and it is easier to do anything there versus APAC. So I think the first limitation within our region, within APAC, I see that data limitation is in itself a bigger issue. I mean, if I really have to work on creating digital twins as my core business, I may not have data enough to do that. I probably have to collect that data to understand that data and then train the model to do the synthetic data. Or that's what we were talking about yesterday with Frank as well, that, creating emotional intelligence is not an easy task anymore here. In the APAC region, whereas I think there's tons of data available in the Western market. So, what other limitations that, as you identified in your research, that could hamper the AI
Yes. Yes.
increments?
Okay. Well, Uh, the leading concern is the decline in critical thinking and creativity, insofar as if the human researcher is using AI as a tool, then that tool, and they're using similar tools, and the outputs become standardized. There is there's three primary drawbacks. So that's the leading one. The other leading drawbacks include AI hallucinations, so grammatical or logical incorrect responses. And I can actually give examples of that because when I did this research, we did the quant survey. We also started with some depth interviews, 12 depth interviews across a range of stakeholders, and I used ChatGPT and Perplexity to then analyze those findings to synthesize those qualitative findings. And I did it myself, and I could actually identify the areas where there were some, well, maybe hallucination is maybe a strong term, but it might be a generalization and lack of fidelity. And I can give specific examples of that maybe a bit later after I go through all the other drawbacks. Which the other leading drawback was risk and ethical considerations in the use of AI, particularly the lack of transparency and accountability. So it's basically because it's a black box output, it's not really clear maybe how the findings have been derived. The other drawbacks are many. I think some of them relate to the primary drawback of declining critical thinking, which could result in poor long-term strategic thinking, lacking the foresight, and the research staff not being trained on the principles of market research, essentially being that the AI would become a shortcut, so they wouldn't need to know the principles. There's also the issues of cultural insensitivity. For example, AI not accounting for cultural and language differences, particularly if it's trained more on Western data. And then biases such as perpetuating existing biases present in historical data, which is, again, like the inverse of lacking the foresight if it's the analysis essentially taken from historical data. The others are more kind of structural, I guess, in terms of the drawbacks. Clients might set unrealistic expectations from their vendors from AI, believing that maybe AI can do everything. So clients would expect vendors to be able to do everything. There are concerns about that could be, well, related to that, the AI would drive down the fees charged by research and insight agencies. So it will become even more price-driven. Disreputable vendors selling poor AI solutions was highlighted by 21% of stakeholders.
That's huge.
And then restructuring or job losses, fairly a lower concern, but still there. And last but not least was the environment, more generally, the environmental impact of over-reliance on AI, because each iteration, it's demand on data centers, and we're already seeing huge increase in energy demands in various countries due to AI. And interestingly, this may also determine where AI is going to be developed most. Interesting, you may have seen that France is looking to position itself as a powerful or an AI superpower. And part of that is they said that they have copious amounts of nuclear power that can actually power these data centers, which is an interesting finding and an interesting insight, given that the development of AI is also going to be linked very much to the availability of low-cost power. So those are the range of disadvantages. But when we look at the pros and cons, we can see where the supply side may be going in the future.
I think the 2 points which I'm taking from the disadvantage is one that client is not giving enough time, making it a hush-hush job, which is why a lot of disruptors are kind of using a cheap AI solutions to work things out. Of course, I mean, I think over a period of time we can overcome those, but the major issue that I see here is from the disadvantages that you mentioned, that the skill set is still weak. People are not going through their fundamental uh, knowledge and they're relying on AI very heavily. So if I consider that, the role of human researchers, will that evolve over a period of time? And if so, what skills do they need? If you have studied that through the research and you have given your advice, what skills do they need essentially going forward from here on?
Well, it's going to be down to the individual companies to determine whether they still have to teach their staff the principles of market research and the principles of sampling and design, etc. Uh, but I think that the AI will will change the structure of the agencies into leaner models. So the greater efficiency, the greater efficiencies that will come from AI will mean there may be fewer project managers. There will be fewer junior researchers, and in fact, one of the companies I did, one of the fairly large research firm I interviewed was saying that AI allows junior researchers to become more like middle level staff. So, you may have a more, rather than a pyramid structure, more of a column structure within agencies. So you would have a fewer number of project managers and junior researchers compared to what we have now, but we would still have the senior researchers and the business development managers and those who are managing the client relationships. So it's not going to change, at least in the short term. It shouldn't change the agency significantly, but it could result in a slimming down of those agencies. But really, a lot of this has been happening since 2015, I would say, the last 10 years, where with panel and self-serve tools, that have been around for a much longer time, a lot of the research has been insourced to client organizations. So agencies had to slim down because of that. And then AI will just be the next stage of that. There would be probably more insourcing still because of AI, but it's not going to remove the role of the market research agency, at least not in the short to medium term, I don't think.
In fact, that's a good point, Piers. Last 15 years, a lot of research has been in-house. People are using less of the agencies, and considering they're actually slimming it down, and now the AI evolution is taking its shape. So, do you think now, rather than agency being called a data provider, they should talk about being more like a strategic advisor? And should they make a shift in how they can stay relevant and valuable to the companies or the brands?
Well, what we concluded was there are probably six types of supply side company that would result from AI in consumer insight. So the first would be those who are more advisory and consultancy, providing more advisory and consultancy based research, where there would be a higher ratio of senior staff to juniors. The second, and some of these may overlap, of course, but the second observation was that consumer insight firms would become innovation hubs for understanding things like behavior, or enhancing our understanding of behavioral science. A third outcome would be the research vendor expanding their services to include creative development that would blend traditional research with creative and strategic offerings. The fourth might be where vendors will specialize in AI for specific applications like advertising research, media research, or shopper insight. The fifth would be that the vendor acts almost like the consultant. This area is where the vendor would become a consultant to the client on the role of AI, that is, updating them on the developments of AI in research space and supporting the client on compliance and corporate guidelines. And the sixth would be, which is kind of already happening, tech-led businesses evolving to incorporate AI enhancements and provision of more self-serve AI tools for both end clients and research firms. So those are 6 different types of outcomes that were identified.
And considering all the last three specifically, from specializing to becoming a strategic advisor, a lot of clients do have that capacity of, doing their research through AI in-house. What is that one thing which can ask them, let's go out and find another researcher? Is it the skills,
Mm.
or because
Well,
money is not a problem?
it's the same reasons that have applied for the last 10 years. Even though there's been high levels of insourcing over the last 10 years, even just for doing panel-based surveys. So the arguments for outsourcing will still apply, and that is access to a much wider range of talent and skills that you don't have from your own internal departments. And secondly, that there's still the arguments of economics as to whether you really need, I mean, it depends on the size of the organization, of course, is whether you really do need a fixed internal cost overhead for your research, rather than calling on it when you need it. So those two arguments will still apply. Well, I guess a third one is that there are still projects that are complex enough and of such size and scale, multi-region projects, where you still need to have the researcher with the network and with the people in the local markets that provide the of those markets and all the cultural and language considerations to do research in those local markets. So those arguments will still apply, in terms of the insourcing outsourcing argument.
I think things will take its own shape at its own time. It's just that how you specialize yourself is, I think, that becomes more critical element for agencies to imply within their culture or within their offerings in order to grab more business from the clients. I think this makes more sense. One quick question, Piers. I mean, considering that you've done this study overall, what do you see as a future outlook and the responsibilities that AI integration brings along to the research table, and how the industry is balancing around it?
Well, it'll probably be similar to some other industries, and that is that there's a lot of companies who are rushing into it for fear of missing out, and we know that, and in fact, from the Asia Research Seminar last Thursday, we had a futurist, Neil Mann, who had talked about some of the pitfalls in the rush towards AI from other industries like financial services, for example, where there's been some pretty low returns on investment in the AI. So what he talked about is kind of typical development curves in the adoption of new technology, where there are various stages of adoption and reflection and then adaptation or change and so on. So I think the research industry will do the same thing. There's a bit of a rush. There'll probably be a period of reflection. There will probably be some notable errors, if not disasters, from incorrect use of AI, and then we will kind of find the right balance. I mean, if you take synthetic data, for example, that some report that by 2030, synthetic data may account for 50% of all data. We will have to see, but the other implication is that there could become more of a premium on real data as a result. So there might be more of a premium on qualitative research going forward. Still a bit hard to say, but these are some of the potential outcomes.
Nice. I think this study is definitely an eye opener. I love every bit of it. I mean, the research that you guys done, the up to the outlook that we are presenting off to the table. This has given a lot in depth about where AI stands at the moment, what is its implication, what are the findings that we can take as a future landscape. Thank you so much, Piers, for your helping us unpack not just these findings of this important study, but also how the industry is shaping its in itself. And as AI continues to evolve, it is clear that value of the human perspective, strategic thinking, and ethical responsibility will only become more essential. For those who missed the Asia Research Media Breakfast Seminar, I hope today's episode offered you a front row seat into one of the most compelling discussions. As always, we'll continue to bring you more insights from leaders shaping the future of the research and innovation. So do subscribe and you'll never miss an update from us. Thank you so much, Piers, again for sharing thoughts. And until next time, guys, stay curious and stay collaborative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking part. Thanks for having me.